For generations, the southern Great Plains belonged to the Apache. They were the masters of a vast land, a force so dominant that even the Spanish Empire learned to fear them. For a time, they were the undisputed power, until they weren't. This is the story of how a scattered, outcast tribe from the north discovered the weapon the Spanish brought, but never truly mastered: the horse. It is the story of how they didn't just learn to ride, but to live in the saddle, becoming what many historians have called the most extraordinary horsemen the world had ever seen. The story of a war that wasn't for territory, but for total annihilation. A brutal, decades-long campaign of displacement that the Spanish at the time called a war of extermination. It's a story of savage battles and unspeakable cruelties. The Apache world. Before the Great Upheaval, the Southern Plains were an Apache world. From the 1500s into the late 1600s, Apache bands had carved out a home stretching across what is now Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, and New Mexico. They were a formidable people, a constant thorn in the side of the Spanish colonial project, pushing north from Mexico. But the Apache weren't purely nomadic. They had achieved a rare and delicate balance. They were skilled buffalo hunters, yes, but they were also farmers. Their small, semi-permanent villages, known as rancherias, were dotted with fields of corn, beans, and squash. This agricultural base gave them a stability that purely nomadic hunters lacked. It grounded them, but it also made them predictable. Their settlements were fixed points on a map, their lives tied to the rhythms of planting and harvest. This very stability would prove fatal when their world was invaded by what one historian called true savages on horseback. Their dominance was real, but it was the dominance of a people tied to the earth. They couldn't possibly understand the nature of the enemy gathering to their north, an enemy that lived on the wind. The god dogs arrive. In the 17th century, the Spanish brought the horse to the New World, an animal the natives called god dogs. For the Apache, the horse was mostly a tool, a useful beast of burden, an occasional mount for a raid. But for a desperate tribe on the margins, pushed out of the Rocky Mountains by rivals like the Utes, the horse was a revelation. It was salvation. This tribe was the Comanche. Originally a branch of the Shoshone from the mountains of Wyoming, they were by all accounts unimpressive on foot. But when they saw the horse, they saw the future. While other tribes were still learning how to stay on, the Comanche underwent a total transformation. Within a single generation, they didn't just learn to ride. They became, as author S.C. Gwynn puts it, part of the horse. Comanche boys learned to ride bareback as young as 6, clinging to the manes of galloping ponies. They developed a revolutionary style of warfare. A warrior could hang off the side of a speeding horse, shielded by its body, and fire a volley of arrows from under its neck with chilling precision. They guided their mounts with subtle shifts of weight, leaving both hands free for a bow or lance. The horse became so central to their existence that it was a measure of a man's wealth and a spiritual extension of his being. This wasn't just adaptation, it was a complete reinvention. They had become North America's most feared horse warriors, and now they turned their eyes south, toward the people who had once dominated the plains, the Apache. A blitzkrieg of displacement. The war that began in the early 1700s wasn't a series of border skirmishes. It was a blitzkrieg of displacement. The Comanche goal was nothing less than the complete removal of the Apache from the southern plains. Their old hatred, born from being the weaker party, was now fueled by an overwhelming military advantage. The tactical mismatch was devastating. Comanche warfare was fluid violence and constant movement. They were a mounted horde that could materialize out of the plains, strike with shocking speed, and then vanish. Their main target was the Apache Rancheria, the very source of Apache stability. A Comanche war party would descend on a village at dawn, burning huts and fields, slaughtering anyone who resisted. But their true prize was human. They captured thousands of Apache, primarily women and children. Adult men were almost never taken alive. They were subjected to ritualistic torture, often being burned alive or mutilated. Captive women and children faced a harrowing fate. After a forced march where any who fell behind were killed, the survivors were brought into the Comanche camps. Young children, between the ages of 8 and 12, were often adopted and fully assimilated into the tribe, raised to forget their past and become Comanche. Women and older children were enslaved, put to work, or sold into the brutal slave markets of New Mexico. Each raid was a demographic catastrophe for the Apache, stripping them of people, resources, and the will to fight. The Apache fought back with desperate courage, and in the mountains, they were superior fighters. But they couldn't force a decisive battle on the open plains. By the 1720s, the pressure was unbearable. In 1723, a massive 9-day battle near the Wichita River ended in a catastrophic defeat for the Lipan Apache, forcing them to flee south. The Comanche now controlled the buffalo ranges, the lifeblood of the plains. They were the new masters, the San Saba deception. Pushed to the brink by the mid-17th century, the Apache were caught between the relentless Comanche to the north and the wary Spanish to the south. In 1749, Apache leaders rode into San Antonio and stunned the Spanish by asking for peace, claiming they wanted to become Christians. All they asked for was a mission and a presidio, a fort to be built deep in their territory. The Spanish, weary of Apache raids, cautiously agreed. In 1757, they established the mission Santa Cruz de San Saba, near the modern-day city of Menard, Texas. But they'd been played. The mission wasn't in Apache territory. It was a deliberate provocation, built hundreds of miles north, right in the heart of Comanche hunting grounds. The Apache had no intention of settling there. Their plan was to use the Spanish as a human shield and spark a war between their two greatest enemies. To ensure the Comanche knew who to blame, Apache raiders began attacking Comanche camps, deliberately leaving behind Spanish-made items. The Comanche were not deceived. On March 16, 1758, the trap was sprung. A massive war party estimated at 2,000 strong and composed of Comanches and their allies descended on the San Saba mission. The few priests and soldiers inside never stood a chance. The warriors, many armed with French muskets, overwhelmed the wooden stockade. They killed the defenders, including 2 priests, looted the mission, and set it ablaze. 4 miles away at the Presidio, the Spanish soldiers could only watch the smoke rise, surrounded and powerless. The San Saba massacre was a stunning declaration of power, proving the Comanche were the dominant military force in the region, capable of humiliating even a European empire. The Apache's gamble had backfired spectacularly. The final collapse. The destruction of San Saba marked the beginning of the end for the Plains Apache. The Spanish, realizing they'd been manipulated into a disaster, began to shift their allegiance. After decades of suffering their own devastating Comanche raids, the Spanish adopted a new strategy in the 1780s. If you can't beat them, join them. Spanish governors pursued formal peace treaties with the Comanche. This was a pragmatic acknowledgement of Comanche supremacy. The Spanish offered gifts, trade, and a military alliance directed at their mutual enemy, the Apache. The Comanche, eager for sanctioned access to Spanish goods and a chance to finish their old rivals, readily agreed. This Spanish-Comanche alliance was the final nail in the coffin. The Apache were now caught between 2 coordinated enemies. The climax came in January 1790. A combined force of Spanish soldiers and Comanche warriors under Spanish General Juan de Ugalde cornered a large group of Mescalero and Lipan Apache at the Arroyo de la Soledad, near the present-day Sabinal River. The battle that followed was a slaughter that shattered the last remnants of Apache power on the plains. Following this defeat, the remaining Plains Apache bands abandoned their ancestral lands entirely. They retreated into the deserts of the Southwest and the rugged mountains of Arizona and Mexico terrain, where horses lost their advantage and where they could continue a desperate resistance. Their population was devastated. The Comanches, having systematically hunted, killed, and pushed out their rivals, now stood as the undisputed lords of the southern plains, masters of a vast inland empire built on the horse and cemented with the blood of the Apache. A new order on the plains. The war between the Comanche and the Apache was more than a territorial dispute. It was a violent reordering of the world. It is a story of how one group's complete mastery of a new technology, the horse, allowed them to rise from obscurity and utterly overwhelm and establish power. The Comanche didn't just defeat the Apache, they replaced them, taking their lands, their resources, and their place as the dominant force in the region. The generations-long war left an indelible mark on the American West, shaping the destinies of all who sought to control it. The Apache would survive, their incredible resilience carrying them through centuries more of conflict, but they would do so as a people of the mountains and deserts. Their dream of a dominion on the plains was long dead, trampled into dust under the hooves of the Comanche. This story is a stark reminder of how quickly power can shift and how brutal those transitions can be. If you found this look into one of history's most savage conflicts compelling, be sure to like this video and subscribe for more stories about the events that have shaped our world. Let us know in the comments what piece of forgotten history you'd like us to cover next. Thank you for watching.